And that's what we're diving into today, but with a twist. This time, the puzzle itself is still being built.
We're talking about a story called The Project, written by an author named Lily Rosslyn, and is being released, get this, episodically.
So we're catching it as it unfolds, watching the plot thicken, the characters develop, all in real time.
Think of it like tuning into your favorite show, week after week, except this time, we don't even know the ending yet.
Talk about suspense. And hold on, because the genre blend here is where things get extra interesting. We're in YA territory. But then Lily Rosslyn layers in this Christian sci-fi element and a healthy dose of supernatural fantasy, too.
It's like she took all the good stuff and threw it in a blender.
And out popped this fascinating, multi-layered world that we're going to try to untangle today. So what are we aiming for in this deep dive? Well, first off, to map out the big ideas and themes that are already surfacing in the project.
Then we'll dig into those supernatural and faith-based elements, because they're definitely playing a huge role.
And of course, we can't forget about Lily Rosslyn herself. We'll introduce you to her and point you in the right direction if you want to follow along with the project.
Which, trust me, you will. Now, to get our bearings, we've been poring over excerpts from Lily Rosslyn's Patreon page, her author page as well, and some early narrative pieces she's labeled Pasted Text and Nexus.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle from different boxes.
Exactly. So to kick things off, let's talk about the mastermind behind this whole thing. Lily Rosslyn. She's active on Patreon, sharing her work, connecting with readers, the whole shebang. But there's something on her author page that really caught my eye.
Oh yeah, the Bible verse.
You got it. It's from 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known.
Heavy stuff, right?
Absolutely, and it feels so relevant to what we're seeing in the project. There's the literal blurring between virtual reality and actual reality that the characters are dealing with, but then there's this deeper question of perception itself, like how much do we actually see and understand?
It's like that verse is hinting that there's more to the story than meets the eye, maybe even some kind of spiritual truth hidden beneath the surface.
It makes you wonder if the characters' own limited perspectives are part of the challenge they have to overcome.
It definitely adds a whole other layer to the story, this idea of searching for a more complete understanding of reality. And considering that the project seems to be a relatively new project for Lily Rosslyn, it's extra exciting to watch her build this world, brick by brick,
Speaking of building, let's introduce our main protagonist, Robbie. It kicks off his whole journey. A simple, yet very relatable desire. A pair of green suede Vans.
Classic teenager.
Yeah.
Right, we've all been there.
But then, life throws him a curveball. His teacher, Mr. Renard, suggests he participates in the science fair. Dangles a passing grade and college recommendations in front of him.
Suddenly those shoes don't seem so important anymore.
Right. And then Robbie stumbles upon this super advanced VR technology at the mall. It's way beyond your typical video game.
Mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, and it sparks this new ambition in Robbie. He sees the massive potential, the possibilities, and boom, his focus shifts completely. He actually ends up using the money he'd saved for those Vans to fund his science fair project.
So we're seeing this transition from wanting a material possession to this desire to create something meaningful. And that ties into one of the big themes that keeps popping up. Ambition.
It starts with those shoes, then it's all about conquering the science fair with this cutting-edge VR.
But as the story progresses, we're seeing how that ambition can, get a little out of control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hand in hand with this ambition is the allure of technology. The VR in the project is portrayed as this amazing, almost magical tool.
But there are hints right from the start that there's a dark side to it.
Like that image of the blinking cursor on the black screen. Simple, but it immediately creates this sense of unease, like something's lurking beneath the surface.
Creepy.
And then there's journal entries that mention a character named Raymond and this mysterious thing called a nexus. They don't paint a pretty picture.
There's one that really stuck with me. It says, "The lines between virtual and reality have been completely obliterated. I fear what Raymond will do once he gains complete control of the Nexus. His lust for power has grown exponentially."
Sends shivers down your spine, right? That definitely casts a shadow over the whole VR project.
And speaking of the project, Robbie isn't going it alone. He and his friend Ben start putting together this, pretty unique team.
The classic misfit crew.
Exactly. You've got Cassie, the physics whiz, Shelby, who can basically navigate anything and might have a little hacker streak, Josie, the artistic visionary, and Derek, the music man. And later on, Jay joins the team, bringing his expertise in electronics and coding. It's like they each have a piece of the puzzle.
Totally. And within Robbie's personal journey, there's this whole redemption arc happening. He's clearly carrying the weight of past mistakes.
It's like they're eating away at him.
Yeah, and the science fair, with Mr. Reynard's encouragement, becomes his chance to prove himself, to turn things around.
Mr. Reynard has this great line, "You can be different than the people you see around you." What you do with that, how you are able to turn it around and use it for good, that is what will make you different.
It's like he's giving Robbie permission to rewrite his own story. But as they progress with their VR project, which they call the Hyperrealm Nexus, things start to get seriously weird.
That's a mouthful. What is that exactly?
Basically, it's the name of their advanced VR simulation, but it seems to be pushing boundaries they don't fully understand. And that's where the blurring of reality really kicks in. The line between the virtual world and the real world starts to dissolve.
It's like the two worlds are bleeding into each other.
Exactly. And there are these moments that just make your skin crawl. Like when Josie asks, wait, how are we here? Is this what happened to you guys, you and Jay?
Or when Robbie says, "It's here, something's here, more than one something."
So creepy. They're experiencing things in their everyday lives that seem to be originating from their virtual experiments.
Talk about a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then we have Raymond Rothenberg, this character who seems to embody this whole theme of manipulation and hidden agendas.
He starts off appearing like this generous benefactor, offering them access to advanced technology.
But then you get inside his head, and his internal monologue reveals a whole other side to him.
One of his thoughts is, I had hoped to leverage the teens to showcase our company's generosity and leadership. However, they may now be the key to finding everything that I need.
Definitely raises some red flags.
Big time. It makes you question his motives. Is he just a businessman looking for an opportunity, or is there something darker at play?
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. The supernatural and faith-based stuff. And those shadows are where it gets seriously spooky.
They first appear in the VR world, these shadowy figures with glowing red eyes.
But then they start showing up in the real world.
It's like a classic horror movie trope, but combined with the sci-fi aspect, it's extra terrifying.
And then you have Derek's father. He's deeply religious and warns about Deppy Tings, which, for those who don't know, are malevolent spirits in Jamaican folklore.
He's convinced that their VR project is attracting these evil forces and begs Derek to quit before it's too late.
It adds a whole new cultural layer to how the supernatural is viewed in the story.
Totally. And then there's Pastor Jeff's sermon at church. He talks about the spiritual world, angels and demons, and how faith is our shield against evil.
It's interesting because Robbie seems genuinely intrigued by the sermon while his parents brush it off.
Shows you how differently people approach the idea of a spiritual realm, especially when faced with the unexplainable.
And speaking of the unexplainable, that ominous journal entry we talked about earlier, the one that says, "Evil has already been unleashed."
Definitely suggests a link between their technological adventures and a real supernatural threat.
And the way the characters react to those shadows highlights this tension between science and the supernatural.
Derek, remembering his father's warnings, immediately calls them duppies.
But Cassie, the science girl, keeps searching for a logical explanation.
It's the age-old battle between reason and the unknown. So let's recap some of the big mysteries swirling around in the project, starting with that Hyperrealm Nexus thing.
Yeah, what is that? Exactly.
Well, we know it's the name of their VR creation, but its full potential and how it connects to the real world is still a giant question mark.
And then there's the trophy case incident.
Oh man, that was bizarre. Jay pulls down a virtual trophy case in the VR world, and then the real trophy case at their school comes crashing down.
It's like the virtual actions are having real-world consequences.
Completely messes with your head. Then there's the theory about Derek's music. Some people believe the frequencies in his music are interacting with the Nexus in some way.
Maybe that's what's blurring the lines between the worlds.
Could be. It makes his role in the project a lot more significant, maybe even dangerous.
We also get glimpses into the history of this VR technology through Dr. Alexander Stevens' research and his warnings about Raymond.
Suggests that there's a whole backstory, a dangerous precedent that Raymond might be ignoring.
And we can't forget about Vince, who starts off as this tough guy, but gets increasingly drawn into all the weirdness.
He even starts hearing whispers. It's like the otherworldly stuff is seeping into his mind.
And the biggest mystery of all, what are those shadows and where do they come from? Are they glitches in the system, demons, something else entirely?
No one knows yet. And here's the kicker. The project is still being written, released episode by episode.
So we're basically watching the story unfold alongside Lily Rosslyn.
And the stakes are definitely rising. We're talking interdimensional threats, the potential for corporate exploitation by Raymond, huge moral dilemmas.
It's a wild ride, and we have no idea where it's going to end up.
Now, if all of this has piqued your curiosity, and let's be honest, how could it not? You're probably wondering how to jump into the project yourself.
Easy. Go to lilyrosslyn.com. That's where you can find all the latest episodes, catch up on past installments, and basically become part of the adventure.
It's a unique opportunity to follow a story as it's being written and to support a new author in the process.
So to sum it all up, the project is this captivating story that blends familiar YA themes with mind-bending sci-fi and spine-chilling supernatural element.
It's about ambition, the power of technology, the struggle between faith and doubt, and the terrifying consequences of blurring the lines between reality and the virtual world.
And the episodic release format makes it even more engaging because we're all on this journey of discovery together.
Absolutely. Now here's a final thought to chew on. Considering the collision of technology, faith, and the supernatural in the project, what do you believe is the true nature of the forces these characters are facing? And do you think their beliefs, or lack thereof, will ultimately determine their ability to survive?
Head over to lilyrosslyn.com, dive into the story, and see what you think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another exploration.
See you then.
Bye!